Thank you for coming to speak with me today. I appreciate your taking the time out of your day to come answer some questions about education and technology. Um, could you just tell us your name for the camera, please?
My name is Brendan Gurdy.
Okay, Brendan. So, would you mind starting us off telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I was born in 1993 in Marlborough, New Jersey. I then moved up to River Edge with my parents. That's where I grew up and attended school. I have a younger brother who is currently 18 years old. He is going to college next year, as I'm just finishing college. I'm currently interning at ADP and still working at Old Navy. So, I have a balance to work out, but, it's okay. I also volunteer in the fire department in my town. That's where I spend a lot of my time. My parents, my mom went to college for 2 years, and then my dad went for only 1 year. So I'm technically the first one to really get a bachelor's degree in my family because my mom only got the associate. So there was a little pressure to get it done, but overall, I'm pretty happy as to where I am right now.
Could you tell me a little bit about your education and what schools you attended?
Grades 1 through 6, I attended Cherry Hill School. Um, well, actually, before that, I attended kindergarten at St. Peter's, and then before that, I went to preschool at a Montessori school. And then after Cherry Hill, I went to the Riverdale Middle School for grades 7 to 8, and then the Riverdale High School for grades 9 through 12. And then after that, after graduation, I went to NJIT, which I am still currently enrolled in. There, I'm studying information technology and minoring in business, since I think the two go hand in hand. IT and business, you need to know both ends, so it's fairly important.
Could you tell me a little bit about Cherry Hill and what you did there and what grades you were there for?
There for grades 1 through 6. Um, I spent a total of 6 years there. For grades 1 and 2, we actually had this program called Multi-Age, and what it was 3 times a week, 3 or 2 times a week in the afternoon, we would be mentored or partnered with someone from a above us, 1 or 2 grades above us, and what they would do is they'd kind of help us along and help us with our work and tell us about even more about Cherry Hill than what we already knew as first graders, because when you're first there you don't know too much about it. Another thing I remember distinctly from elementary school was the field days that we had. Towards the end of the school year, we'd get into teams, and then we'd compete with all these sports, whether it be like flag football or like hopscotch or something like that. And then later on in like fifth and sixth grades, we took trips to our sister school. Since there's two elementary schools in River Edge, Roosevelt is the other one. Roosevelt School has a discovery room where it's more of like its main focus is on science and like biology, studying insects and like dirt and water quality and all that, as in depth as a sixth grader could understand. So that was very fun. I remember going on those trips about probably twice a month. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much the other thing that I is just coming to me now is in school we'd always I remember, and this is how I probably knew that I wanted to go into computers to begin with, was we had the computer room in our school. We had a computer class in Cherry Hill, and we would design things and color things in, things that a sixth or fifth grader would like to do um, on the computer. So I enjoyed that very much. But yeah, besides that, I don't really remember too much more about elementary school.
Did you think your education at school was of high quality? What did you think about the education at the school? How do you think you benefited from that?
I would say it was high quality. There was only one grade where the teacher was kind of not up to par with the rest of the school. I think that was in third grade.
Could you tell us a little more about why she wasn't up to par with the other teachers?
Just in terms of homework, it may sound funny, but it was weird not getting any homework. It was weird. Even my parents said, oh, how come you're not doing anything when you come home from school? I'm like, oh, we don't have anything assigned. I was like, well, it's kind of nice, but at the same time, it's bad for you because you have to be continuing your schoolwork even at home for a little bit, nothing too much. And then the other thing, the few homework assignments we did have, we'd get them back 2 weeks later.
She wasn't a very challenging teacher.
No, not
She
at
kind of
all.
gave you the bare minimum.
Yeah, which was nice, and then it was kind of not nice in the same way because fourth grade, when things kicked in, it was like, this is what school is like again, and it was kind of rough, but it was nice to have an engaged teacher, teaching the class.
Tell us a little bit more about the discovery room. Do you think that really benefited your learning? Did it give you a desire to learn more about science, or did it actually push you away from?
To be honest with you, it didn't really encourage me to study science. I just found it interesting. It definitely didn't push me away from science. I can tell you that because it's something that I fairly enjoy. I mean, it's kind of challenging for me, like especially later on in my education with chemistry. That's you know so I wouldn't lean either way. I just enjoyed it. It was very interactive. We weren't just sitting down at any point. We were moving around the room, like doing these science projects.
You also mentioned the computer room, and that really influenced you in your wanting to pursue a computer science degree. Could you tell us more specifically what actually went on, and what kind of technology that you can remember that they used, what kind of computers, what you actually did?
Technology that they used, it was all iMacs and Macintosh operating systems. They were the old CRTs that had like blue or green covers on them just to make them look cool at that time of the year. um, and I just saw how easy things were on a computer, like and how much information you have at your fingertips at that time. So that was very intriguing for me to see, and I think it definitely led me to the field I'm studying in now.
Did you primarily use those computers for just learning how to use them, or did you actually use them for research projects like we use nowadays?
We actually did use them. I remember, I don't know why this just came to mind, but in sixth grade for our science projects, we depended heavily on the desktops, and we also had a laptop cart that the school shared. So oftentimes we'd get that in our classroom, and we'd each have a laptop, for 2 or 3 students. So yeah, we definitely do research on them. Um, I first started using them or learning how to use them probably in first or second grade, like introductory classes throughout the year. Um, but yeah, we did both. We learned how to use them, and even though we did migrate to utilizing the benefits of them, we still were interjected with how to better use a computer. Like don't go onto bad websites and things like that. Like as technology had its revolution, we kind of were with it. We were kept up with it in terms of learning how to use the computer alone.
Definitely had seen a difference from the time you were in first grade to sixth grade of the progress of the computers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not only the hardware itself, but just how people would use the computers and the limits of them. Because I feel like in the beginning of my school year, these things were like magnificent. They had no problems. But then, as time went on, you realize that yeah, there are bad things out there on the internet, and you have to be a lot more cautious. You know, and now you look at today, and you've seen that go even further with data security and whatnot. So I saw a little glimpse of that in Cherry Hill, in terms of security and whatnot, but not nearly as much as right now.
Any other technology that was used besides the computers in Cherry Hill in your elementary school?
Not only did we have laptops on a rolling cart, we also had a few projectors that would roam around the room. Um, Later on, though, we did get a few smart boards in some of the classrooms in the sixth grade, just sixth grade, and they were like brand new. Um, and those classrooms would have the built-in projectors because they need to be positioned correctly and whatnot. But that was definitely another glimpse of the evolution of technology in the classroom. But it wasn't really used too much. Like the teachers didn't really know how to utilize it in their lessons just yet because even though you have the technology, the publishing companies have to enable that technology to be used. Not just have the textbook.
Well, the teachers might not have been well prepared enough to use this technology as it came about.
Um, I think they were prepared. I just don't think the material was there to utilize to really benefit from it. Especially when we all had books still. Other than maybe going through the textbook on the projector, but going through textbook on with a projector doesn't really require the smartboard aspect of it, other than writing notes right in the textbook virtually on the board. But so yeah, it definitely wasn't fully utilized
Okay,
just
so
yet.
the teachers, you were saying the teachers were prepared, it just wasn't, the technology wasn't where it should have been. In
Exactly.
terms of, you said your middle school was Riverdale Middle School, and that you had only attended there for 7th and 8th grades. Could you tell me about those 2 years, and just about what went on during those 2 years, and if you enjoyed that time?
Two very quick years that went by in my educational career, but overall, I thought they were okay. Um, the first thought that comes to mind was in 7th grade, the school actually had no air conditioning just yet. So it was a little rough to like go from the luxury of having air conditioning in elementary school to being like hot and distracted and just not really doing too well. But other than that, that's in terms of technology, that's where we saw it kind of blossom. For instance, all the teachers had laptops. They did the attendance electronically. They did grades electronically. Um, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then every single classroom had a projector built in along with the smartboard, and that was definitely utilized a lot more, especially in math. I remember math um, being like the main classroom that would just take place on the smartboard and nowhere else in the classroom. Like the chalkboard was never even touched. Um, but yeah, those were definitely good years in school. You know that that was when we were introduced to being able to take electives, such as chorus or photography class, things that we're interested in, not just core classes, but things that we might want to pursue in our later career.
How much of a difference was that? How much did you see really change?
Um, in terms of like how we benefited from it, or
Yeah, you definitely you
um,
can say that how you benefited from it, how it helped you.
yeah, it made processes a lot quicker, in terms of keeping track of grades and getting your grade right then and there, because the teacher would just have to enter a grade and then the average would populate immediately. Um, and it was cool too because the technology enabled you to kind of experiment with your grade too, like, oh, what do I need to get on this exam to get this grade? Well, the teacher can just enter multiple grades into the program and see how it affects your grade. So I thought that was cool. It really told you what you had to meet in terms of meeting your goals. What was required of you. So that was definitely helpful. In terms of the smartboards, that was pretty cool. Because honestly, I'm not a big fan of chalk on chalkboards. It sounds kind of dry. So people using the smartboards was a lot nicer than the chalkboard, just because you see technology being used in a great way.
Did the teachers primarily use the technology, or were you guys using the technology? You as students using the technology as well?
Yeah, a lot of times we were called up. We were given the pen to the smartboard, and we all thought we were cool writing on the board. Because we thought we kind of felt like the teacher at that point. Um, Utilizing this expensive technology. Kind of showing the class that this is pretty easy to use. So yeah, we would not as much as the teacher, but we would definitely be given the chance to play around with it.
You also mentioned that you could choose from electives. Did they offer a wide range of electives that dealt with technology, or was it still primarily things like home economics or photography or course, like you said?
Yeah, they hadn't really gotten into technology just yet. It was still home economics, chorus. We did have a woodworking shop, which doesn't revolve around technology, but I feel like it's still very important just to be able to know how to put something basic together. Not that I know how from that class, but it does make me feel more comfortable. Just because it kind of boosted my esteem with tackling, building something from scratch. Um, because I did take that class. I enjoyed it. We were given the trust to use these power tools and these saws, which didn't result in any injuries, but you could have very well ended up hurt if you weren't paying attention. So I thought that was cool to be given the trust to utilize that kind of power.
Other than that, there was no computer classes like you had in Cherry Hill.
Well, no, we did have a computer class. It was actually in that computer class in eighth grade. Um, the main focus for like a good half of it was typing and improving your typing speed. I don't know the technical name of that, but that's what we focused on. Proper technique, proper positioning of your hands, so you don't get carpal tunnel or anything like that. Um, Emailing, like email etiquette.
Basically, it was still more how to use a computer rather than using it for things such as research projects
Yeah,
or
definitely.
other purposes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think there was actually a decline from the time you were at Cherry Hill? Because you had mentioned earlier that you did use the computer a little bit for a research project in Cherry Hill. Did you see a decline in using the computer?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I mean, we all had computers at home, but utilizing computers in school, you either had to go to the library, or have to go to sit at a desktop and research something. And we actually did have we had a 2-week class on that about how to use all the databases in middle school. EBSCOhost, and the other aspect of that is properly citing your work. So we also had, we utilized the computer in order to create these proper citations, like in APA or MLA format. But yeah, I would say it was a slight decline in the middle school, definitely.
They introduced you to this technology, but they really didn't show you how to use it and put it into place. They were just giving you the basics of it rather than saying, go ahead and see this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if they assumed that we already knew that, from elementary school, but yeah, they didn't really teach us much more other than utilizing databases, which, is an electronic form of media, but, it's not very in depth.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like that's a very useful tool that's being used more and more. When they taught you about those, they didn't actually give you a project to put that into place, though. They just taught you how to use it, but they didn't actually implement it in a project.
We had one project where we had to use the database that the school paid for, but that was pretty much it. Like we weren't, we were told that Google doesn't grab everything off the internet, and it's not always reputable information. So we did learn about that aspect, but the way that we had to implement the new skill that we just learned wasn't the greatest. It was just, okay, here's a project, only use the database that we paid for. Not much more to it than that. Like, they didn't have us compare data from Google or EBSCOhost, which I think would have been interesting to see.
In the elementary school, you had discussed a little bit about homework and how some teachers weren't up to par with homework. Did you have any teachers in the middle school that were not really up to par with the other school, or how was it overall?
Not that I can remember. I'm pretty sure every teacher gave homework, which in the middle school, when you have 8 classes a day, that can add up pretty quickly. But they were all pretty short assignments. And a lot of times they collaborate with each other. Like, if one teacher was giving out a huge project, word would get around that, oh, okay, you guys have a lot of work to do from this other class this week. Let me limit the homework that I give you. So it did balance out.
So you'd say the teachers worked pretty well together, and they were of quality background, that they really helped benefit you, that you had quality education while you were at Riverdale.
Yeah, I would say so. The majority of them were very young too. I found that very interesting, just because the school did have a lot of old teachers that a lot of them retired at once. So I don't know if that helped in terms of quality. Having people fresh out of school, with this new knowledge of how to teach. I think that probably helped tremendously.
Did you find any teachers that struggled with technology versus other teachers?
Surprisingly, no. I mean, even my older English teacher, Miss Voorhees, she really enjoyed technology. She almost embraced it, which is good to see. I mean, she occasionally struggled with it, but that would just be with connecting the computer to the projector. Something simple like that. But once that part was up and running, it would be smooth sailing from there in terms of material being presented.
As far as your homework assignments, did you have a lot of assignments that needed to be done on a computer at home, or was it still primarily written by hand?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, that's a good point to bring up because some teachers preferred printed, handwritten homework still, and not typed. Because we still wanted to work on our handwriting and whatnot. I guess at that point, I don't know if that still goes on today. But that's a good point to bring up. Is some teachers didn't mind the typed up copy, and some only wanted handwritten homework turned in. But in terms of assignments solely being done on the computer, um, I would say we had a lot of them, but again, it wasn't too extensive. Like you would just have to download the Word document off. We used a program called eBoard, where we grab all these documents and whatnot. The website would be divided by each class, and then for each class, we'd have the proper documents that we need. So I wouldn't say we had too many assignments that required a computer.
But there was a lot of accessing documents
From
for homework.
Yeah,
Was that a large increase from the time you were in elementary school?
definitely, yeah, because we didn't do that in elementary school at all.
You attended Riverdale High School for 9th through 12th grade, you said?
Yep.
Okay, could you just tell me in some more detail about your high school experience and if you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed high school. It was my favorite time of of schooling. That's when everyone became more secure. No one was dealing with puberty anymore, so like everyone was in their own spot. Um, that's also when we had more freedom in terms of classes we can take. More electives, even more so than in middle school. Um, uh, they also had in high school a technology elective where you can get certification from either Cisco or Hewlett Packard in terms of some kind of networking certification. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't end up taking that. I probably should have, but that's really when they got up to the times in terms of offering an elective that dealt with technology. In terms of technology at the school, when we got to the high school, we each got our own laptop. They were tablets. They were like hybrids. They were laptop, and you twist the screen and fold it down. You have a tablet that you can write on with the stylus. That was really helpful to take notes on because you really didn't even need a notebook because we utilized Microsoft OneNote to organize everything that we jotted down. Um, every classroom had a projector and a smart board built into it. So that was really a lot more utilized than the middle school in terms of, um, being able to show a information, how to deal with it, how to sort through it in terms of researching.
Would you say there was a large increase in the amount of technology being used from the time you were in middle school to high school?
Yeah, just having each student having their own laptop, even though it was only the freshman grade, since we were the first grade to have this program be thrown onto this technology program, it definitely was. Everything was online. We had textbooks online. Um, some textbooks still weren't online, so that was kind of annoying. You'd have to bring a laptop and a textbook with you. Um, but yeah, it was when, you know what? Actually, it's also when we realized that technology has limitations because a lot of people, their laptops broke, or you drop them and you couldn't really use them anymore. So actually, the second year, my sophomore year in high school, they actually gave us different laptops. They were just normal laptops that were fairly small in size. They had like a 12-inch screen. Um, those weren't as helpful as the ones we originally had because you couldn't physically write notes in the digital form. You only had to type. That was your only ability to jot down notes electronically. And me personally, I prefer to handwrite things more than type it.
Would you say there were some issues that you were the first class to get those laptops? Do you think they should have tested it out a little more, or do you think there was some downsides to that?
They apparently did have a pilot program where they had 5 models that were given from Hewlett Packard, and each student tried each laptop, and they were then at the end they voted on which laptop best suited them or would be the most helpful in the classroom, and they did vote on the tablets that we originally had the first year. I don't know what kind of durability testing they did on them, but that that ended up being the problem with them, is that the screens would either like twist the wrong way and then break the connections, and then you couldn't use it at all, which then caused problems because then sometimes you couldn't participate in lessons where you had to like digitally answer a question, like a survey question within the classroom. You have to partner up with someone. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I think it could have been a lot worse, but they did an overall pretty good job.
Was it a difficult transition coming from the middle school, having no computers for everyday use and still having to do paper, and then the high
Yeah.
school having everything on the computer?
Well, it was a good transition in that sense, in form of note taking and material wise, but in terms of distractions on the internet that you can go on while you're in the classroom, that's one good thing about having the laptops in the high school, is that it teaches people to focus a little more. It makes you realize you need to pay attention, not go on the internet and play games while you're in the classroom. They did have monitoring software that some of the teachers didn't really use. They just thought at that age, you can make the choice for yourself if you want to pay attention or not. And some teachers really used it, and they blocked everything from the laptops except for what you needed. So that was good technology to have.
Overall, do you think that those computers and laptops made you a better student?
I would say so, because going ahead in college and seeing what people do on computers in college, at NJIT, how people don't pay attention in the classroom there because maybe this is their first time having a laptop out and having instruction in front of them as well. So this is their first time where they're exposed to, oh, can I play games on a laptop or pay attention? Where I already went through that phase of, okay, I need to pay attention. I can't do this, can't do that. So I think it was very beneficial.
Do you think if you didn't have the laptop during your high school years, it would have impacted the way you're performing in college right now?
It could have, because to be quite honest with you, I see a lot of people who I feel like everyone occasionally just checks, their social media site, while in the classroom in college. But then there are people who just literally watch videos and play games the entire time of the class. I know just from sitting behind them, I'm like, this person's not paying attention one bit. Um, so I mean, me personally, I don't think I would ever be like that. But in terms of learning how to balance how much, all the information that you have available to you, from the classroom instructor and the laptop, it taught me how to balance it a little more.
In high school, you said everything was done on laptops. Was there anything that you did in school that didn't require a laptop?
Um, Later on in science labs, we didn't use the laptops at all. We'd actually just have a marble notebook where we'd take our notes from science projects and whatnot. I mean, we still use them to research and whatnot occasionally, but that and language classes, like in Spanish class, all 4 years, we didn't use the laptops too much. Like it really, learning Spanish wasn't really dependent on the laptop. I think we may have actually still had textbooks that we had to look through. It wasn't even the textbook wasn't even on the laptop. So I'd say those two areas of school are the weakest link.
Do you use the laptops for the math classes as well?
Was online, so we did use that. Um, the first year when we had the tablets to actually write, we used them all the time. Like that was our go-to thing. Like even the teachers would take them and like review our work on the laptop. Like they didn't even want a paper, for real-time feedback of what we were doing. They just took the laptop to the desk and reviewed what we did. But then when we transitioned to regular laptops, that's when we went back to notebooks again. So that was that's interesting because you saw how technology can really benefit, and then we took a step back in a way by going to a normal laptop because it really limited us in classes like math where that handwriting is key.
Do you think that those tablets, if you would have had them for the complete 4 years of high school that you were there, do you think that would have been even more beneficial to you?
Oh, definitely. It would have forced us to enable technology even in a more efficient way because instead of having notebooks upon stacks of notebooks, we'd have everything digital. that we could just transfer over to our laptop or computer at home and have forever. Um, you know, it would have been a lot more beneficial just in terms of that. Um, yeah, I definitely would say it would have been a lot better.
Was there any limitations that really inhibited learning the laptops that really made something difficult? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, there was like the occasional, you'd be distracted by not your laptop screen, but maybe someone else in front of you who would have like an interesting article up or a game up that like if the classroom wasn't too entertaining at that point, you would just stare at. Which I don't know that I think that didn't hinder me too much because I don't really deviate too much from what's going on in the classroom just because I like to know what's going on all the time. But that's just me. Um, but me personally, I don't think it did. The only problem we had occasionally was in terms of research product projects. Plagiarism wasn't a big problem, but it had to be.
Now you are currently enrolled in NJIT. That's correct, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And you're attending for a computer-related major. So I expect that you probably have a lot of technology involved with that. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I got to college. It was, it's a different experience. You have a lot more independence. Because instead of going to school for free in elementary and high school, you're paying for this education. So professors don't really care if you don't care. You have to put the effort in, which is no problem for most students. Um, but in terms of technology, that's when it really like blossomed. Because not only did you have your own laptop that you had to purchase, you still had the smart boards, you had smart projectors, which that was pretty cool. You had a projector that could be like mounted on a table, project on the table, and then you could use a stylus to write on it. Like, you didn't need the smart board part of it. It was all built into one device. So I thought that was pretty cool. In terms of the assignments, they were a lot more modern. Like we would do um, our school uses a digital platform called Moodle. It's basically, you have all your classes and all the content is displayed on a week by week basis of, what's due, what you have to read, and whatnot. And on Moodle, we'd have these discussions that would go on, almost like a blog page, where you can get responses from other students, at any time. Um, Occasionally, the professor would have to approve them before they'd be posted, but that was pretty cool. That was because that's something you would do, I don't know, on Twitter or your own blog site. Except now you're doing it for school, which I thought was very cool. Um, but yeah, technology definitely became a lot more prevalent in school because you know it's also cheaper to have everything digital than to print everything, than to print an assignment. The only assignments that were required to be printed were final assignments, basically. In the English and core curriculum of the school, as opposed to as opposed to the technology side, such as IT courses or computer science courses. Everything with those courses was all digital. Even the exams would be on Moodle.
Would you say it was a drastic difference from high school to college, similar to that of the experience you had in middle school or high school, or would you say it was pretty even, that there wasn't so much of a
Yeah,
difference?
you know what? Because we had our own laptops in high school, it wasn't really much of a change. The only change that I noticed was the type of assignments that we would get. They would be all online. Um, Also, that's when I was in college, is when I was first exposed to taking exams and quizzes online. So, oftentimes they tell you it's open notes. So, you'd really have to take what you learn in terms of getting information off the internet to get, the correct answer for these exams. But that was definitely a different experience in terms of test taking that I really liked because it's definitely more real world. Because, in a job, if you don't know anything, you're not going to fail at it. You're going to try and research it on the internet and try and solve the problem. It's definitely a lot more real world experience than just normal test taking, closed book, closed notes.
As we discussed, you said you had a drastic difference between middle school and high school with the technology. But over the course of your educational career, how do you think the technology changed? Was it, just tell us a little bit about
The technology hasn't changed too much, to be honest with you, between that 4 year 4 year time span. The only thing that really changed was, as I mentioned, we didn't really need smart boards anymore because that ability would be built right into a projector, which was pretty cool because then it enabled you to have a writable surface anywhere, whether it be on a table, on a wall, and you could move that around. It didn't have to be fixed. Um, so one time, the only time we utilized that was in our science lab, was when we had, I think it was a map that was displayed on a table, from the projector, and we would write on it. And I don't remember what we were doing with it, but I thought that was pretty cool. That was a good utilization of the newer technology, compared to the high school or middle school.
What about the comparison between what you had, let's say in first grade, when you're at Cherry Hill, to the time to now that you're currently in college? What about that technology difference?
The thing about Cherry Hill and then the thing about NGIT in the high school is Cherry Hill they used IMAX, and then when we got to the middle school they used Windows. So we already had a Windows machine at home, um, but in terms of the comparison, that was really the only difference I saw. Also, these computers in the schools got more and more powerful, so they'd start up quicker, they'd run a lot, they would have less problems, especially with connectivity. Like a lot of times in high school, the internet would just stop working, or you'd have to disconnect and connect. Um, and then in college, it seems to have kind of ironed out the minor problems that we experienced in high school. Um, but it wasn't. I would. It's not too dramatic, the difference between high school and um, the middle school. And then in terms of high school versus Cherry Hill and first grade, it was only a difference because they use different products, in terms of Apple versus Microsoft. But other than that, it wasn't too much of a difference. The computers even in first grade were powerful enough to handle what we could do at that first grade level. If we need to do something more critical, like as a college project, like a research project or programming project, maybe those computers in first grade wouldn't be able to handle that, or just be a little slower, a little more cumbersome to get that done in terms of what applications and what programs are installed on those computers as well.
Definitely think there was a difference between those computers that if you were to use them today, for your college level coursework,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be beneficial. Um, Overall, what do you think about the role technology played in your educational career?
Technology, I think, played a very good role in my educational career. It really has enabled me to learn more, not only in the classroom, but also in terms of, in terms of my technology life, like, your social media, safe internet practices, um, even safe online banking practices, because, that's very prevalent now. Um, it definitely exposed you to the outside world a lot quicker than, as opposed to not having the technology. Um, but yeah, I thought it was very beneficial.
So it definitely not only helped you in your core classes, but it also helped you outside in the real world, just in banking. And do you think it helped you prepare better for the real world than if you didn't have any of this technology in
Oh yeah,
school?
definitely. Turning at ADP, there's computers everywhere. Everyone has a laptop. Everyone has a laptop, and they also have a desktop. So technology has been prevalent there for years. Um, they started adopting that in that business probably right around when I started elementary school. So it's good that I got that exposure slowly but surely over the course of my education. Just because when I get into a job, it's there and it's in full force. In terms of um, knowing how to use it.
Overall, what did you think about your education in terms of teachers, technology, and everything that you were provided with?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it went very well. The only thing that was kind of rough was in sixth grade when we got this smart board and projector technology. We didn't really know how to utilize it to its full potential just yet, and that's not because of the teachers not knowing, but it's because the material from the publishers or whatnot wasn't available just yet, and it wasn't very interactive. If it was available, it was just the textbook on the board. It wasn't too, we didn't have like online quizzes or tests or even like just activities that they can set up. it was just very bare bones.
Do you think the technology will be continuing to be prevalent in education in the future?
Definitely, I think it'll be even more adopted. Like I know Cherry Hill just got two more computer carts. They're still using iMacs and whatnot, but you know, it doesn't matter which operating system, Macintosh or Windows. You're still going to learn the basic principles of technology and how to properly use it. Um, and I think it's great. I think it's exciting. I mean, there is a limit. I think as to as we go down the line of age, as a first grader gets more ability to go on the internet, there needs to be the protection for them so that they don't get into, they don't read something that's not appropriate for them, or they get exposed to something that is dangerous, such as a virus, for their computer, not for themselves. Um, but yeah, overall, I think it's a great thing that's happening.
Thank you very much, Brendan, for answering all the questions. We really learned a lot about your educational experience
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
technology. Thank you.
No problem.